Hello, everybody. Welcome to Totally Tabled. My name is Shaggy, and today I am running down my first impressions of Amsterdam. Now, I just did a full solo playthrough of Amsterdam. It's on the channel. I want you to go check that out if you haven't, because in this discussion, I'm going to assume that you've watched that playthrough. Amsterdam is a remake of Macao, which is one of my favorite games of all time. In fact, you can go check out my top 50 games of all time video, and you can see exactly where it lands. So initially, I was quite excited when I heard about Amsterdam, because for almost a decade, I've been wanting a deluxe version of Macao. I've always said that I wish there was a version of Macao that looked more like Francis Drake. I don't know if you know that old game, but I wanted something along that line. Deluxe components, beautiful art. And to be clear, that is not what this is. The word deluxe is getting thrown around a little bit, but this is not a deluxe production. This is just a straight remake of Macao by Queen Games. And there are some deluxe extras that you could get. You can turn some of the cardboard tokens into acrylic, and there's a really nice acrylic wheel. Unfortunately, the game comes with a deluxe price, even without all those extras, and having to pay extra for the cards that have the English on them. And I usually don't discuss price, but this one is, I think, really notable for being really overpriced. Now, I mention all of that to say that my excitement level had plummeted throughout the Kickstarter campaign. I didn't like the name change. I didn't like the price. I didn't like the way the board looks, which is incredibly garish in my opinion. I nearly backed out of the Kickstarter campaign because of all those things, but my love of the game itself and the promise of some of the gameplay changes made me sort of just suck it up. But honestly, by the time the game arrived at my door, I wasn't that excited anymore. So the question is, have my feelings changed? So there's really two things to discuss here. There's the game itself compared to the old Macao, and then there is the solo mode, which is new. It was not in the original Macao, and that was definitely a big part of why I wanted to get this new edition. So let's talk about the former first. All the complaints that I had during the Kickstarter campaign, they haven't changed. I hate that this is called Amsterdam and not Macao. I really dislike the art on the board. I think it looks prototypey. The colors are garish. I really, really dislike the look of the board. It's busy. It's not as functional as it should be. And I think this queen look that they seem to have in all their games, it feels dated. You know, this look looks good for the Alhambras and the frescoes and the kingdom builders, but I just really don't like it here. The other art is fine. The art on the cards and stuff like that, that's fine. The icons are fine. And it's hard to complain too much about the production when you're comparing it to the first edition of Macao, which was terrible. Looked terrible. I joke that the first edition of Macao looked like a parody of Euro games. It's super beige. The cards essentially had no art on them. All the tokens were paper thin. Almost anything would be an upgrade from that. Except I kind of like the beige more, to be quite honest with you, than this loud, garish, messy, busy board. And while the deluxe acrylic tokens and stuff are nice, they didn't go all the way. And so the player crests are not upgraded at all. And they're just cardboard instead of wooden, which is what they should be. This just isn't the deluxe look and feel that I was hoping for. But if you didn't have those expectations, you know, this is a fine production. And I'm sure there's people who will think the board looks fine. But let's talk about the most important thing, which is gameplay, because there's been quite a few gameplay changes here. And I have to say, I think I kind of like them all. There was a definite effort made to make the shipping more interesting. So now, rather than just sailing around to these ports and delivering the goods, you can additionally pick up dock workers who need to be delivered to certain spaces. And also, you need to go to one of these crane spaces that are about in order to load the goods that you're collecting onto your ship so that you can deliver them. So it's this little extra step, a little extra timing involved. And you now get more points for delivering earlier. which just makes those decisions more interesting. I do kind of wish that rather than having these separate spaces with the cranes where you load stuff in, that you could just load when you're at a dock. Because it doesn't feel great to like sort of go out of your way to just sort of go to a crane space. You're spending cubes to do it just to load stuff up. It would kind of feel better if you just docked, delivered some stuff, and then you could load your other stuff. I don't know. If you get lucky, you can load a dock worker at one of those crane spots and maybe double up and get some efficiency there. But sometimes I was just sort of spending cubes to go out of my way so that I could just load stuff up and then move and deliver it. And that just didn't feel great. It felt like I was wasting cubes in a way. But overall, I think the shipping has been made more interesting. I also like the black market idea. I think that works really well. The fact that you can acquire a good, put it immediately on the black market, and get either 2 coins or a cube of your choice. That really helps ramp up the early game, get out some of those more interesting cards quicker so you can use them more often. And also your ability to keep a cube from one round to the next is also a great change. All of that just means it's easier to get a bunch of different colors. Like back in the original game, getting 4 different colors in one round was extremely difficult. You really had to work hard to do that and maybe even get a little lucky. Here it's much more doable, quicker. And I was afraid that it was going to maybe make it too easy to get cards out, but I think they've balanced the cards and the cube requirements pretty well. It is definitely a little bit more open than the original game, but arguably the original game needed to be opened up a little bit. It was maybe a little too tight and a little too punishing. This new game feels just right. And looking through the cards and stuff, it does look like they have retained a lot of the same special abilities and powers from the original game. There did seem to be a few were taken out. A few new things were added to pair up with some of the new mechanisms. It looks like some of the cards were balanced in different ways, making them either easier or harder to get out. All that seemed to be really well done. And there's a lot of little changes too that I thought were really welcome. The bridges that give you points as you move up the canal spaces. That was really great. I really like that. Having one of the colored districts or more in a multiplayer game be worth extra points at the end of the game. So you're doing a little area control. That was neat. And there's a bunch of modules that come in the game that I didn't show off in the playthrough. A lot of them are sort of neither here nor there, just these little things. One of them that looked really cool was having your own private little goals at the beginning of the game that will give you extra points at the end if you can achieve them. I like that idea as well. So from a gameplay point of view, I think they really nailed this. I do think this is an improvement over the original Macao. They definitely made it a little bit more fiddly, especially to set up. The original Macao was so streamlined and so elegant. They removed a little bit of that elegance. So like instead of having one deck of cards, you've split that deck into 2. And so you're dealing out a certain number from each deck. That's okay. Rather than having on the cards define the market, you now have a separate stack of market tiles. So it's a little bit more consistent. That's okay too. It does allow them to add some different benefits other than just getting points. So now you maybe are moving up the canal or you're getting a cube or something like that. So that's good. Does make setup a little bit more finicky. It means the footprint of the game itself is a little bigger than the original. A huge improvement is the wheel. The wheel is fantastic. In the original, you're putting the cubes on the outside of the wheel and sort of spinning it. Here, the little turning mechanism, you're putting it in these little notches, so everything is real nice and self-contained. That works really well. I really love those. And in fact, because I got the acrylic ones, I now put the cardboard ones, which are actually really great. You don't need the acrylic ones at all. But I now put those cardboard ones into my original game. So if I ever feel like playing the original, I'll at least have those nice wheels. So yeah, I'm left with a game where I think the gameplay has definitely improved. I like the game a little bit more. It's a little bit more forgiving, a little bit more going on, more decisions, not quite as streamlined, but I think I like it better. I just wish it looked better. I wish the production was a little bit more deluxe. I don't feel like I got good value for the money that I spent on it. I wish I didn't have to spend extra to get the English cards, because I think the icons would be a little bit rough if I just had cards with icons on them. It's not completely unusable, but it would definitely slow the game down. And this is supposed to be a relatively quick, medium weight sort of a game. So it's a mixed bag, but overall positive. Now let's talk about the solo mode. Again, like I mentioned, wasn't in the original game. It doesn't require any extra components. You're just rolling the dice as you normally would, and then depending on what you roll, the AI opponent is doing a few things, and then you get to do your turn. In concept, I really like it. It's very streamlined, it's very simple. That's definitely the kind of solo opponent that I like. In practice, though, I have some concerns. Now, I've played this 5 times solo. That's all I have to go on, is those 5 plays. My concern is that in every one of those 5 plays, it hasn't even been close. I've won 3 times and lost twice, and every time it's a blowout. If you watched the playthrough, then you saw the AI really scream ahead and sort of blow me out right away. I've had basically that same thing happen twice, but then 3 other times, I was the one doing the blowing out. In fact, one time I nearly lapped Tom is the opponent. I nearly lapped him. And again, it's only been 5 plays, but it really feels like if Tom gets those early triples and those early 6s, then it can be very hard to catch up. And that's exactly what you saw in the playthrough. I rolled triple 6s, I was rolling triples a ton, I was rolling a lot of 6s early. And what that does is it lets Tom do things that a normal player would never even have a chance to do. Right? He's delivering dock workers every time you roll a triple. He's getting 9 points, 7 points, 5 points. And he's making moves that would require a human player to spend, I don't even know, 10 cubes, way more cubes than you have even access to in those first 3 or 4 rounds. And so you roll a lot of triples early, the whole dock worker thing just no longer becomes a thing for you. He's just done that already, it's over. And the same thing happens when you roll a lot of 6s. Especially early, the black market gets filled up, so that stops becoming a thing that you can utilize. And that's a critical thing to get your engine rolling, to get those cards out early. And even worse, he starts making those big-time deliveries. And because of the nature of the game, when he starts doing that, there's just fewer points for you on the board. He's taking away potential points that you can score, and I think that's probably the problem. I think that's why the scores end up being so uneven. He either takes those away, which limits your potential, or he doesn't, in which case you can go out there and get those points and he can't compete. Now, maybe this has just been an anomaly for me, I'm not sure. It seems like halfway through the game, I kind of know what's going to happen. Now, don't get me wrong, even in the games that I've won, where I've blown him out, he still shoots up to an early lead. He shoots up that canal track. He kind of shoots ahead in points right away because he doesn't have to build up, right? He's just doing it right away. But even so, halfway through, I can tell, ooh, he didn't really roll a lot of 6s yet. I'm gonna easily be able to catch him and blow him out. I never felt any sort of tension, and the swing of points, just the swinginess of it, was fairly extreme. The other problem with that is there's just no way to control that or to adjust difficulty in any way. So you're randomly either getting an incredibly difficult opponent where you have to play a flawless game to maybe even be able to catch him if it's even possible, or you've just gotten extremely lucky and there's no challenge at all. There's no way of adjusting that, and it's just a huge problem. The solo game overall just feels half-baked. It feels as if there wasn't a ton of work done here to get this mode up to snuff. And it's really going to require the solo community to come in and fix this. And that's a shame. Now, don't get me wrong, it is still fun, because Macao is fun, and it's fun to build your engine, it's fun to make decisions with your cube, it's just a fun game. And since the solo opponent is so easy to manage and so just sort of the turns are so fast. You can play a solo game in 45 minutes. It's lightning fast. And it's still fun. Like, the journey is fun. The ending is a disappointment, but the journey is still fun. That's not really enough to recommend it as a solo game, though. Once again, I'm torn. I'm left torn on this game because I just want the solo mode to be a little bit better. In the same way I want the production and the look and the feel of the game to be a little bit better, but I can't deny how much I love the gameplay. I love the engine building. I love the little pick up and deliver stuff. I love the little bit of area control. And I love the win rows. I just love that mechanism so much. I love the decisions around that. I love the combos that you can make. I just love this game. And I'm going to keep playing the solo mode just because it's so quick and easy and it gives me that fun Macao feel. And maybe the dice will start to even out and I'll start having better games. This is a game that I want to recommend, but I'm having a hard time justifying it because of the huge price tag and because of the undercooked solo mode. It's just hard to recommend, but the gameplay here is worth it for me. So if you watch the playthrough and you think that looks like a fun engine building game with a really unique mechanism that I have not seen in other games for some reason, I can't believe that there aren't at least a dozen games that use this because it's so much fun. If that looks good to you, the gameplay, you can overlook all this other stuff, then I would recommend it. But I am left a little disappointed, wishing maybe another publisher had been able to take this on and just do it a little better. So anyway, there you go. Those are my rambling first thoughts on Amsterdam, Macao 2.0. I will not refer to this as Amsterdam. This will always be Macao for me. But until next time, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.